Good morning. We are back on the Bronco. It was mentioned to me that I didn't really lay out very well what exactly we're doing. It's pretty obvious we're working on a giant white turd. I bought this truck, I think 3 years ago now. Has it been that long? 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember now. I'd have to look at the title. I gave $900 for it, and then turned around and put $600 worth of tires on it. The engine leaked like a sieve when I bought it. It had some runability issues, which all got better the more I drove it. I think its biggest issue, aside from the rust and the fact that it's an 88, was just lack of maintenance and lack of driving it. I think it just sat around a lot. And the further I get into this thing, the lack of maintenance part really starts to rear its ugly head. Somebody's done work on it. Because all these front engine bolts were loose. And I don't mean, I didn't have to use a pry bar. I mean, I probably could have taken them all out with a 1/4-inch drive ratchet. Including the balancer bolt, which really concerned me. I've gotten a new bolt. There was no lock washer on it, which, is a problem. So, we're slowly getting all the parts figured out. But what am I doing with this truck? We'd had some really nasty winters here in Kansas, and I've got a 2-wheel drive 02 Dakota with the 4.7 in it. Fun little truck, unless you're on the ice. And I'm sure my choice in rear tires is part of that problem. I like to have a fatter meat on the back of it. It wasn't the best thing to drive 36 miles on a 2-lane blacktop every morning in ice and snow. So we started talking about some options. We had an 02 Concorde at that time, which we've since sold. And we decided it was time to get a 4-wheel drive. We just wanted a beater vehicle, something we could all fit in. I was fine with something that needed some work, which is why I'm not complaining about doing this stuff too much. I gave $900 for it and some tires. I put a stereo in it, a couple other things, and just kind of cleaned it up and got it to where we could drive it. At that time, we were using about 1/4 to 1.5 of oil per fueling, but it was all going out the gaskets. I don't think it's burning any of it. I actually think the valve train is in pretty good shape. I will have the valve covers off at some time because I went ahead and got the valve cover gaskets. But we had some stuff. I don't even remember how I bought all this. I ended up with some extra money, and we pieced together some extra money here about a year ago. So I started ordering parts. I've got about $700 worth of parts that I've bought for this thing. And that's what we're putting on, are all these parts that I've got laying around. I also bought it because I had always wanted a Bronco. A buddy of mine had one years ago, and I lived up in Lincoln, Nebraska, and we always cruised around it. I just really liked how the trucks were set up. I've become a huge Ford fan over the years. So, I just really liked them. The problem is that 2 or 3 years ago when I bought this, to get into a 92 or newer, I really wanted a 96 because I wanted OBD2. We were looking like $3,000, $4,000 for a decent one. So I had to settle a little bit, but I wasn't going to give up EFI. And I know there's going to be some people who make comments about EFI, but I don't care. I wanted fuel injection. I didn't want to fuck around with putting a fuel injection system on it or anything like that. Wanted a small block Ford, which wasn't a problem. 302s are a dime a dozen of these things. I really wanted a 351 Windsor. But, again, you're looking at a premium for that. I had a 351 Windsor several years ago, and I sold it because I assumed that I would probably never own a vehicle with a small block Ford in it. And guess what? Now I own a vehicle with a small block Ford in it, which is fine. So I wish I had my 351 Windsor, but I don't. So went with 302 EFI. The only thing I don't like, again, 88. I'm not a fan of this front end. But it's whatever. I mean, the whole truck's ugly anyway, so whatever. So that's really why we bought this truck. The other reason I like this drivetrain, this setup, this body, this year range, whatever, F-150, well, F-Series in general, E-Series, the Broncos, all the parts interchange. And they're everywhere. I can hit any scrapyard in the state of Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, just about anywhere in the country and find parts. I can walk into any parts store and get parts. And everybody always says, oh, Fords are expensive. Maybe now, but this truck's getting cheap. I got a lot of crap sitting on my counter over here for $700. Mostly thanks to Rock Auto. And if you're not using Rock Auto, this is not a sponsored plug. Rock Auto's got about $4,000 from me in the last 3 years. And it has been worth every penny. So, good in the snow, fun to drive, fills my need for a project vehicle, easy to work on for the most part. I mean, it's a Ford. I like working on Fords. I don't like working on Chevys. I was working on a Suburban. I don't like it. I like the Suburban though. I just don't like working on it. I don't know. And the more I research and get into this vintage of vehicle and read about its little quirks and how to fix things, I just really like it. I mean, it all makes common sense to me. So yeah, it's got some issues here and there, but we'll clean that up. Got to cut the exhaust out today so I can get the oil pan out, and piece the front of the motor back together, have it sitting on its motor mounts. Maybe not everything bolted up, but at least ready to dump some fluids in. Pan's out. It's laying down there. I haven't looked in it yet. I haven't looked at the bottom of the motor yet. I wanted to take a minute here and catch my breath because I'm sweaty and I wear plastic glasses and they're sliding down my nose. But pan's out. Pump's out. Pickup's out. Not what I wanted to do, but it's done. I also had to loosen the transmission cross member and jack the transmission up so I could clear the fucking bell housing. So I cut the exhaust out. All the mounts are loose. I probably ought to put a transmission mount in while I've got it apart. But honestly, it's not that hard to get to, so I'll just do it another time. So, yeah, we're making progress. Alright, well, I got the pan off, and I'm actually really happy with what I'm seeing here. The odometer shows like 75,000 miles, and I always kind of thought that was probably accurate, and that the issues that the truck had were more from sitting and lack of maintenance or improper maintenance. And after getting under here and getting the pan off and getting everything cleaned up, I mean, all I did was run some steel wool around the mating surface for the pan, and this thing actually looks really good. I've got just a little bit of lateral play and no vertical play that I can feel whatsoever, and I feel really good about this engine. I mean, God, she's clean. I mean, the oil that you see, I really expected to see. I expect to see more. And the pan was really clean too. Painted. But I'll see if I can shine up in there. As you can see, there was hardly any sludge in the bottom of this thing. What you're seeing there is just dried residue from where I cleaned it out with brake clean. I'll need to clean it again before I put it back together, but there was a little bit of buildup around the plug, and that was it. Really happy with what I'm seeing. It makes this all worthwhile. Had my buddy Kendall over, and he's a mechanic by trade, and I really rely on him for some input on this stuff. I've got experience. I've wrenched before, but this is really beyond where I ever got into. I was a line mechanic, so I did hydraulic pumps and hydraulic cylinders and built drive shafts, stuff like that, for agricultural industry. So I really never got into engines like this. I've swapped motors, but never tore them apart. So I did go ahead and ask him about that, and yeah, he recommends replacing it, and I agree. So I'm going to get that. We were looking at the front cover. I was cleaning it up while him and I were talking, and it's got some issues. So I think we're just going to replace that front cover out here in the scrap heap. But some heavy pitting going on both sides. This isn't so bad, but just not the best looking thing, and no more than they cost. I think we're just going to go ahead and replace it. So pretty well done for the day. I'm going to come back out tomorrow and get the pan back in and get the motor set down, get the new mounts in, and we'll be done with all the bottom end stuff. And I'll get the timing chain set and front cover ordered, and I'll work on cleaning these mate and surface off and getting that all ready to go back together. But kind of revitalized. I'm liking what I'm seeing. She's a dirty pig, but that's the worst of it, really. She's just a dirty pig. And the plenum is going to come off eventually when I do the valve covers. We thought, well, you know, we could do them. I could do them with the valve covers or with the plenum on, but I got to put a plug in the back of this head, well, both heads, to delete the smog pump. So it's probably just gonna be easier to pull the plenum, do the gaskets for it, get it all cleaned up. I'll probably spend the extra money and clean up all this hose and replace all this old rotted shit and just do it up right and make me something reliable here. And then I can drive the wheels off of this and the Dakota can come in. So I'll have more tomorrow. Alright, well, I just slid out for what I hope is the last time for any major stuff. I still need to put a oil pan plug in and fix the exhaust, but the oil pan is in, the motor mounts are in. I'm not sure what that was all about. It has taken me all afternoon to put 2 motor mounts in, and I don't really know why. At one point it looked like I had the wrong mounts, like they were just completely wrong. And I pulled things out and I measured, and they looked wrong. They measured wrong compared to the mounts I took out. But I went ahead and crawled back under, and I was going to have to take them out anyways if we were going to return them, and I swapped sides. And then they went in. And the motor mounts are the same. They're supposed to be the identical. I got 2 different brands from Rock Auto because they only had 1 of each brand. They looked good. One was a little nicer made than the other, but I mean they were both good looking motor mounts, and compared them side by side, and they looked identical. And they're supposed to be identical, but nothing was going together, and as soon as I swapped sides, it fell right in place. So, yeah, it took me all afternoon to do that. I think I got back out here at like 2 o'clock, and it's 5:01. Yeah, not what I planned on doing. I think I'm going to go ahead and call it a weekend. I'm beat. Those motor mounts wore me out. Very aggravating. If anybody has any insight on that, I did a little bit of research, and I see where people had issues getting them to line up, and it was better to start block side and then drop them in, which is what I ended up doing. I did start the other way first, thinking that would be easier, putting them on the frame and then setting the motor down on them. So yeah, definitely block side first and then drop it down into the frame. I had to get a bar clamp out, and back at the transmission I had to manipulate the engine multiple ways, and finally had to just get a pry bar out up front to get them to drop into their holes. But I finally got it, So we're on new motor mounts, ready for all this top end stuff. So I was hoping to start cabling today, but I guess we'll hold off on that. So hopefully be on this next weekend. Thanks for watching.